Next Pats podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. We have a phenomenal guest, one of our favorite guests here on Next Pats for you this week. It's the great Dante Scarnecchia. He's here with us as the pads are coming on at training camp. So who better to speak to than Scarnecchia, who you know for so long was such a critical piece to how the Patriots operated, how they performed once those pads came on in late July, early August. Does he get the itch this time of year when the calendar flips to August? Does he ever want to get back on the field and do what he did so well for so long out at Gillette Stadium? And what should we be watching for? Whether it's those of us in the media that get to be there every day, thankfully, or if you go down as a fan, what should we be watching? What are the most important things that an offensive line coach, i.e. Adrian Klemm, new Patriots offensive line coach, is teaching right now? And what to do with Trent Brown. Trent Brown has essentially, as we're recording here today, had 3 days off in a row. Load management, not necessarily a term we've ever associated with Bill Belichick before. What does Scar make of all of that? Phenomenal conversation. Again, I think you're really going to enjoy it. I know you enjoy it every time he's here with us on Next Pats. He is an absolute fountain of wisdom when it comes to all things football. So without further ado, here's the great Dante Scarnecchia. All right, there he is, Dante Scarnecchia, the great Dante Scarnecchia. Dante, thanks for being on Next Pats with us here today.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
So we're just getting off the field. It was the Patriots' second fully padded practice. We're in the first week of August, Dante, and I have to ask you first, do you miss it? Especially this time of year when it gets to be early August and the pads have come on. Is there any part of you that says, oh man, it'd be nice to be out there right now?
No, there really isn't, honestly. I mean, I did it all. I retired for a reason, and I'm very pleased, very happy in the situation we're in. So no, I'm good.
So we're not going to see out there pulling an Ivan Fears, because he has been out there and he likes to watch, he likes to hang out. And I know that's your great friend, Ivan. We're not going to see you hanging out on a golf cart watching practice anytime soon, huh?
No, Ivan is my great friend, and he, he's happy doing that stuff. And I think Bill's very kind to let him be out there and do all that. And I'm sure he's helping and making contributions where he can. And that's what he wants to do. Great for him.
If you can, Dante, I think what our listeners would love to hear is sort of insight from you as to knowing that you haven't coached for years now, but around this time of year, first couple of padded practices, what is it that you as an offensive line coach, that Adrian Klemm maybe right now is most focused on? Is it team specific? Does it depend on what's going on with the club in a given year? Or are there certain fundamentals that, August 2nd, you're hammering this time of year?
Well, if you go all the way back to the spring and, the organized team activities and then the mini camp, all those things have a great, great purpose for developing offensive linemen. And I'll be specific in that way. It's true for the whole team, but, what I coached was the offensive line. So, those things are really good and they're very valuable. And then when you come back in as a team for training camp, you have whatever it is, 3 or 4 days in pads or in shorts, and it's more of the same. So finally you get to a point now over the last 2 days where they get to see really what it looks like in full pads, in drills, where you can see whether or not a guy can block any one or how well they use the techniques that you've been training them to do. You see one-on-one pass protection, pass rush. And I think all that's really, really good and a great way to measure where your team is at this point. So even though it's 2 days, I mean, those are 2 valuable days, and they don't have many of those days. They really don't. So you got to take advantage of every one of them you got.
How valuable is the evaluation that you can do? Again, just a couple days into full pads. Today actually was the first day, even though they were in pads a couple of days ago. So they were in pads, then they had a day off, back in pads today. But today was the first time we saw some of the things you're talking about, the one-on-one pass rush drills, for instance. We hadn't seen that until today. Can you get a sense of, okay, this guy, maybe he's new to our team, or maybe he's a young player. Okay, this guy can really play. Or maybe it's the opposite end of the spectrum if he has a tough day out there. Can you tell those kinds of things this early in camp?
You know, Phil, I really believe that everything you do counts for something. And whether it's in shorts and helmets, and then the progression that goes along with that. So you're not making a decision on who can start and who can play and who can't play or any of that right now. It's still in the, the early part of the process. So, those guys that you have expectations for, like David Andrews, you're not going to make any assumptions that he's got it all. He's fine tuning the things that he knows how to do and that will make him successful. And the same thing's true for any veteran player. And then with the younger guys, what you're really trying to find out is, how well they've gotten and are able to use the techniques that you taught them in the spring. And then when they first got back, and see what it looks like really when things are high up tempo and the pads are on and all the rest of it. And again, that's all just part of the process because, in the coming weeks, they're going to have a preseason game. I guess it's next week. And then they're going to go work against other teams. And I think those practices are invaluable because, you can go against your own guys in pass protection and then pass rush. But when you go against other guys on other teams and specified drills like that, I think it just is a very, very telling and very helpful in developing players. So, there's nothing that's going to be rubber stamped and said, this guy can play, this guy can't play, because it is really a process. And you hope that whatever their skills are, whatever their abilities are, it is manifested over the next 3 preseason games because those things count.
One of the reasons I love being out at practice during training camp is, to me, it is still, and this is over 10 years now that I've been going to training camp. It's still remarkable to me just how efficient it is out there, Dante, in terms of how the team uses its time. And I'm sure Bill Belichick is a huge part of that. But I have to imagine that sometimes for the position coaches, you can't do, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but for instance, in those one-on-one periods, are you able to pull guys aside, after they have a rep and coach them up based on what you had just seen? Or is that the kind of thing that has to wait until you hit the meetings a little bit later because things are really fast-paced out there?
I really believe in volume of reps. Okay. So if, we would go into one-on-one pass protection and we got used to doing it this way against our own team, but it's really fast. We're going right tackle, right guard. We're just, give them a snap count, go, and coach them on the run, and then get ready to start the next guy. And we would get, as in a 10-minute period, 30 to 35 reps of that stuff. So are you able to get a lot of things taught? No, but that's what every practice, everything you do is videotape. And so we would then go in to our meetings in the afternoon or in the evening, and we would go through those tapes. And I think the players would probably say in a very tedious manner, but that's all right too. Because that's where you can really fine tune the techniques and say, look at, your weight's way outside, you're going to get undercut, you're going to run and say, you got to keep your weight inside the midline of your body and use your hands and all the things you've been trying to get them training them to do in your drills. You want to see those things on the game tapes or the practice tapes. So, if tomorrow after the same drill, there's no improvement, then you begin to wonder. But if there is, then you say, okay, we're on the right track, and that's what we want to get done. And then you really use the good things that they do, and you praise them and say, if you play like this, you'll be okay. If you play like this, you're not going to be okay. So that's what it's all about.
I like watching those one-on-ones too, because so often when the team gets together, our eyes, I think it's probably an unfortunate reality for most of us that cover the team. We feel like we have to just follow the ball.
Sure.
and to tell people what happened at camp, we have to be able to say Mac Jones made an accurate pass to receiver X and picked up X number of yards. But in the one-on-ones, we can really focus in on those bigger bodies. And Riley Reef, for instance, who I thought had some tough moments at times during camp up until today. I thought he did well in those one-on-ones today. It looked like he won pretty decisively the 2 reps that he had. Can you go back in your memory banks, Dante? Maybe you don't have to go back all that far. Tell us any one-on-one real like all-star type of players in those one-on-one periods that you coached that you think back to and just say, man, that guy must have lost, a handful of reps in the however many years I had him in those one-on-ones. Because it does feel like there are some guys who've been really good at it.
Yeah, I think your best players, the best players that we've had, their skills were so good and their techniques were so good and your expectations for them were very high when we go one-on-one. And usually, was it a situation where they just kicked the hell out of the guy they were blocking? No, but it was, was a situation where you just look at it and say, okay, that's good. That's the way we want it. And you did a great job here. Remember, one-on-ones, and I always tell this to the linemen, it's all fastballs out of the defense. It's all fastballs. There's no curves, there's no changeups. It's just all fastballs. And the analogy I'm making is there's no draws, there's no traps, there's no runs. It's just pass protection. So they know where the quarterback is because there's a big orange dot back there. Well, that dot isn't moving. So you're going to get, it's easy for them. But I've always said this, if you can one-on-one pass protect in drills, you're going to be a really good pass blocker when it counts the most. So we try to get it all to a certain point and keep in perspective the fact that it is all fastballs. And, you may get pushed back a little bit more than you normally would. But I think this is, and we tell them it all the time after the one-on-one, we're going to go to a team period right now. And if we do the little things right, they're not getting back there. And usually, that could easily be the case. So that's what it's all about. And I really like that part of it.
Did Joe Thuney ever lose a rep, Dante? I know we're like 150 yards away, the media are, when we're watching those one-on-ones, but I swear, I feel like every time I watch Joe Thuney, for some reason, he sticks out in my mind, do a one-on-one pass rush rep. Man, I feel like nobody really gets around him. Nobody really gets through him. He was always there. Yeah,
he had a real knack for staying in front of people and using technique, and and he took a lot of pride in the way he played and the fact that he could learn the stuff that we wanted him to. Very bright guy, really good player, consistently good. That's why when he came in as whatever he was, late 3rd round draft choice, he started as a rookie and played every game for 4 years or whatever it was. He never missed. Hated being out. I would take him out late in games and he'd be mad because he wanted to play every play in the season. So he's one of a lot of really, really good players that we've had that I've been able to coach.
No doubt. Well, one guy that we're paying a lot of attention to, not a player, the man who's in your old job now, Adrian Clem, one of your former players. And I know you're not in the building right now, Dante, but this time of year, what's the working relationship like between an offensive line coach and an offensive coordinator? I think people will be interested to hear, how much input does the offensive line coach have, or did you have specifically? I won't ask you to speak for Adrian or anybody else. When it comes to everything that you're installing, how closely would you work with somebody like Bill O'Brien to make sure that, you're finding the best way for your offense and your personnel to execute their jobs out there?
Well, I think it all goes back to when everyone gets together. As an example, we're going to run outside zone. How are we going to teach it? What are you going to tell the linemen? what's the footwork, what's the hat and hand placement, and you teach and you discuss it as a staff. How's the tight end? How do you want the tight end to block the outside guy on your combination blocks? How are you doing things? So all of that, I think, has long been discussed. And now whether or not you can get them to do it exactly the way that the coordinator wants it done, as well as, to me, what the coordinator wants shouldn't be a hell of a lot different than what the offensive line coach is teaching. So I think it's a meeting of the minds where everybody comes together and so this is how we're going to do it. This is our way of doing it. And I think that I would suggest that it shouldn't be a heck of a lot different now than what it was at any time forward. And you know, you're talking about Cole Popovich, you know, and Carmicillo and all those guys. You know, whatever they all arrive at, that's the way we're going to do it. And everybody's going to lock arms and say, you know, that team has a way, that team has a way, that team has a way, and we have our way, and that's what we do best.
Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you could spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/NBCSB to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/NBCSB. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Hope is here. GamblingHelplineMA.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support, Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, or Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit www.mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming or visit www.1800gambler.net in West Virginia.
How difficult can injuries make things on an offensive line coach this time of year, Dante, where you are trying to get, you're talking about the importance of the volume of reps. We've had Micah Wenu, the team's presumed starting right guard, who hasn't been able to practice at all. He's working his way back from injury. Cole Strange just hurt his knee a couple days ago. It doesn't look like it was too serious. He's been out at practice on his feet, but he hasn't practiced the last couple of days. There's been a variety of other injuries actually to more depth guys. And so there was a point the other day in practice where they were down 6 offensive linemen. Trent Brown was getting sort of a day off, it looked like. So how much stress does that put on a coach, I guess, but also just on the practice for the offense in general when you're working with more limited numbers that way? I won't make it sound like you only had 5 they only had 5 linemen. That was it. We know the rosters are at 90 right now. So there's a bunch of guys. But it felt like they were running low when they were down 6 the other day. It felt like a big number.
I think this, what seems like, a tough situation for one is an opportunity for another, so if you're a guy's replacement, or like, let's take as an example, who's playing right guard now? Is it Bill Murray?
So he was really up until today. They had put in Cody Russi, who is an undrafted guy last year, and he actually went to left guard to Cole's spot, and Cole's initial replacement is the rookie this year, Mafi from UCLA. Yeah. They moved him to the right side.
Great. So all I'm saying is what a great opportunity for those two guys. Well, and for a coach to see what those two guys can do. All right. You've seen plenty of Cole Strange on the field, and I'm not minimizing the fact that Cole is still in the developmental process and trying to get it better. And I would I would say that no one's probably more, hurt mentally because he can't be out there than Cole. I've been around that guy. I know what this guy's all about. He loves it. And so he'll get back out there and he'll pick up where he left off. I just think that, an opportunity for others, and there's a lot of opportunity for the guy that's coaching to take a look at guys. And all of a sudden, a guy that you weren't really paying a whole lot of attention to said, man, this guy's not bad. This guy may be able to help us. And that's how guys get ahead in this league. They stay healthy and they stay out there and they improve. I think that that's really important. And I never ever thought it was a curse. All right, let's move on. What we got is what we got. Let's play. We're going to play. We're going to practice. We're going to play games. Let's go.
I mentioned Trent Brown, and it looked like he had a day off the other day. It's now been basically 3 practices in a row, Dante, where he's been out there and he's had his jersey on, but he hasn't practiced in either of the 2 fully padded practices that they had. He didn't practice in the day in between those 2 practices. And the Boston Herald has reported that it's essentially the coaching staff trying to manage Trent's workload. You've worked with Trent closely. He had the best year of his career with you when you guys won the Super Bowl in 2018. How did you manage Trent that year to get the most out of him that season?
He did what everyone else did. I mean, he practiced every day and there was no backing off. It was just like for all of them, they all got treated the same. So I'm not saying whatever they're doing, okay? What I've read and heard, is number one, he came back, he passed the conditioning test, okay? He was out there for the 3 unpadded practices, and by all accounts, he was doing okay. And, I don't go out there, so I don't know what he's missed or what he's doing out there or what their intentions are with him. And in terms of trying to keep him, either saving him or maybe he's got some ailment that I don't know about because I don't know anything. But I do know this, a healthy and motivated Trent Brown is a lot better than an unhealthy guy with a bad attitude. And I'm not saying that he had any of those things. I'm just saying is that the guy has a great skill set. And if they can keep him up there and keep him playing and get him to play the way he can play, they're a lot better off than not. And I'm happy to hear you say what you just said about Riley Reef, because sometimes, it gets hard. You can't make an evaluation on a guy who's blocking Josh Uche in team periods with no pads. You can't do that. It is what it is. So, I'm glad to hear that for the last 2 days, he looks like a guy that's played in the league for 14 years or whatever he's done. So that's a good thing, because the more guys more cream that you can get to rise, the better off the line's going to be. So I'm glad to hear you say that. And hopefully Trent will get back out there and, get on track and the way it was when he came back from, summer break.
Do you think load management is something that has kind of creeped its way into the NFL, Dante? That's a term that we've used with the NBA for a long time. Stars sitting out random games to make sure that they're healthy for their playoff runs in the spring. It's surprised me that it's made its way into our diction while we cover this team, because we know how valuable practice is. You just said, in 2018, Trent did what everybody else did. He was out there to practice every day. We know how much Bill Belichick values practice and how practice execution becomes game reality. And I've spoken to some players that have, stepped away from the game fairly recently that are kind of looking at some of these different situations, whether it's Trent now or Matt Judon, who has similarly, missed some practice time, even though he looks healthy. And they kind of scratch their heads and they say something along the lines of, that's not how we used to do it. Is this a good shift in your view or not?
My feeling is, things have changed so dramatically over the last 5 years, where we have one padded practice and 1 day off a week, 1 day padded practice a day and 1 day off a week, and a time limit on that practice. And only so many reps. And, like, come on, man, let's go out and play some football and practice, and they'll be all right. We're not killing anybody, and I just think that three preseason games, then we play. I mean, come on. There used to be 6, then there was 4. So I'm not a big proponent of it, giving guys a day off unless they need it. Maybe a very veteran player could use a day off or 2, or a guy that, is managing a bad back or something. I get all that, but I just think that the more you can get out there and practice the game and play the game, the better off you're going to be in terms of developing guys.
Yeah. What would be the drawback? Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but to me, watching, if they are trying to manage someone's workload, the benefit would be, well, we're going to hope that this guy's healthier for longer, basically. What's the drawback to maybe missing a handful of practices in August here?
Well, I think
especially on the offensive line, I guess, Dante.
Well, I think conditioning and working together, I think it's a lot better. If you can keep your starters out there and working as a unit, that's not always possible. But if you can, it certainly would help them, and developmentally and cohesiveness in terms of verbalizing things at the line of scrimmage and all that. That's obvious to me. But, sometimes it doesn't work that way. And load management, I guess that's what's happening. That's what's happening. I'm not a big proponent of it.
Do you think Bill is a proponent of it, or it's just sort of a reality of today's game, or maybe the players today and their approaches have changed to the point where he's, had to adapt and change a little bit?
Only he can answer that question. I can't. I just told you how I feel about it. I'd rather have him out there than not. So,
yeah.
But if that's the way he wants to do it, then he's the boss. So, you acquiesce to that, and and if he comes in and says, we're going to give this guy the next practice off, and okay, what are you going to say?
What is your? I know you do still you follow it. I know you read about the team, you pay attention, Dante. So I do want to ask you, what is your outlook for this year's team? How much more improved? I think that's what most fans are thinking, is how much better can this year's team be versus last? They end up out of the playoffs again a season ago, but what are you envisioning for 2023 for these Patriots?
Well, I just want them to have as good a team as they possibly can have. I think that I think offensively, hopefully they'll be able to play better than they played last year, with more cohesion, and develop a really strong running game, as well as get Mac Jones to play in the way he played when he was a rookie, and hopefully even better than that. And I think those things will manifest themselves. I think they have enough. I was concerned about the tackle situation, but hopefully, if between Trent and Riley Reith and others, they can develop into a good unit. I know they got some pieces in place, and hopefully they'll get that done. But I just would like to see them have the best football team that they can possibly have. I'm not saying it's going to be this many wins or that many wins. I don't believe in all that. There's 17 games to play, and I'd like to see them really, get better each week and really be a factor. And I think that the changes that they've made, it's obviously everyone's talking about Billy O and all the rest of it. Billy O is a good coach, and and the guys they have on the staff offensively, and we'll just see where it all goes. But I just think it'll, I just hope nothing, nothing but the best for that football team.
Well, I think, we and I always try to temper our commentary to a degree, but the tackle situation is one that we've highlighted before. And I did want to ask you before you go, if they were concerned about the tackle situation, Dante, would there be a way for us to tell? Would it be as simple as, well, all of a sudden we're seeing a lot of screens and draws, and tight ends, staying in to pass protect? Is it that simple, or is that going to be something that's difficult for us to decipher?
I think that they're in the installation mode of their offense, and they're evaluating players as it goes. And the installation mode means that, today you put in these 3 or 4 protection systems, and one of those may be a protection system where you keep the tight end in and you release the back on the other side. And if that's the case, then, that's just part of developing the offense. So I don't see any more into it than what that is. And maybe it is a way for them, or maybe there is a way for them to say, okay, look, if we have to give this guy help against a guy like Judon or Uche, and they're lucky to have to work against those guys. Those guys are really good. And to say, okay, we got to make sure that we're okay over here by doing that with the tight end, as you just said, or maybe chipping them with the back on the other side and releasing the tight end out. If that's what they got to do, then those are the things they're working on going forward that they'll take a look at here in the preseason and ultimately have them ready to go when it's for real in a month. So we'll see.
Definitely. Well, love hearing you talk X's and O's. Thank you so much for speaking with us for about a half hour here. Dante, you're on the beach, you're on vacation, and you've taken out a lot of time here to chat with us and for our listeners to hear from you. So we're really, really appreciative. Thanks so much. And hopefully we'll be able to talk to you once the season begins. We'll be able to pick your brain on what you're seeing.
Thanks, Phil. It's always good to talk to you, and stay healthy.
Awesome stuff there from Dante. Patriots Hall of Famer. He'll be inducted later this year. Hopefully we'll see you at One Patriot Place for that ceremony. Should be an exciting one. You got Mike Vrabel going in this year as well. One of the best years ever, I think, to be there in person and listen to these guys speak, because both of them have so much to give when it comes to insight. But we know it won't be X's and O's insights that we're getting that day when they're donning their red jackets. They'll be sharing memories. They'll be telling stories. I can't think of a better duo to go listen to than Vrabel and Scarnecchia. Very interesting, too, just thinking back to our conversation. Very interesting to hear him talk about Trent Brown. Obviously, he got the best out of Trent Brown, helped make Trent Brown the highest paid offensive lineman in football just a few years ago. But he is this 400-pound enigma, and shouldn't quite give him the 400-pound label because he came into camp in shape. He passed his conditioning test. Bill Belichick told us just a few days ago. He's lighter than he's been. So he's in shape. He looks healthy. He participated in practice and looked pretty good. No pads, but still looked pretty good for several days. And now he's had several days off. What's going on there? And I think Dante Scarnecchia tried to shed some light on it for us. You're better off having a healthy and motivated Trent Brown as opposed to the opposite. And I think that's what Bill Belichick has to be thinking when he's devised this practice schedule for Trent Brown. But you do lose something in the way of reps, in the way of conditioning, in the way of building chemistry with your fellow offensive linemen. So it's a trade-off that Bill Belichick and the staff, I'm sure, are wrestling with. But he's become such an important piece to your overall operation, even if it's something that he's helping to initiate. And we don't know that to be the case. But if he is, hey, I might need a day here or there, Bill. I might need a couple days in a row, Bill. Are you in position to tell him no? Because where are you without Trent Brown? This is what made the Trent Brown doesn't make it to minicamp story, and the Trent Brown shows up to minicamp seemingly not in the best of conditions story so important. Without him, now you are leaning on Riley Reif and maybe Connor McDermott as your top two tackles, and that's not a picture that Adrian Clem, Bill Belichick, Bill O'Brien, Mac Jones, or anybody else, I'm sure is looking forward to start the 2023 season. Trent Brown, an absolutely critical piece. And if they can get anything close to what Dante Scarnecchia got from Trent Brown in 2018, now in 2023, they'll be much better off for it. Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of the Next Pats podcast, guys. If you want more training camp coverage, and I know you do. I know you're hungry for it. Head on over to NBCSportsBoston.com. Follow me at Phil A. Perry on Twitter. We've got your stock watch piece every single day. And Pop Douglas is on that thing trending up just about every single day. We told you about Pop soon after he was drafted. We spoke to Eric Galko, who runs the Shrine Ball, about Pop Douglas. Had a great Shrine Ball, now having a great training camp. Read all about him on our website. Kayshon Boutte, fellow rookie receiver out of LSU, fellow 6th round pick, also had a nice Wednesday just a couple hours ago. We're just fresh off the practice field, working with the ones, making a couple nice plays in one-on-one periods against John Jones, against Christian Gonzalez, high-end corners for the Patriots. So maybe 2 promising rookie receivers on this Patriots roster. And the offense in general, I think people are going to be really excited to read about. So again, make sure you're checking out that stock watch. The Mac Report is another piece we're doing every single day, because I know that you need to know what Mac Jones is doing on a daily basis out on the practice fields at Gillette Stadium. Wednesday might have been his best day, and maybe the best day for the offense, period. And if they become a competent offense in 2023, if they get to where people are hoping they can get to, remember, they were a top 10 scoring offense just a couple years ago, Mac Jones's rookie season with Josh McDaniels running the controls. If they can get there this year, we might be looking back to today's practice and saying, that's really where it began. Things started to click for the Patriots offense on August 2nd, 2023, because not only was it a fair fight between the offense and defense, which was never the case a year ago at this time, but the offense kind of had their way with the Patriots defense. One of the best defenses in football, according to some measures, last year. So again, all the details on the website, NBCSportsBoston.com. Continue to listen to us on the Tom Carnes Patriots Talk podcast. We'll have another Next Pats podcast for you next week, so make sure you're locked in for that. We'll talk to you very soon.